The Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. For a free financial survival toolkit and newsletter, sign up at KerryLutz.com. KerryLutz.com.
1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. Chris Twain of don't-tread-on.me is with me for our weekly dialogue. He's a little under the weather, but he's always sharp as a tack. Chris, how you feeling, man?
A little weak in the voice, so if I start with a fit of cough, you'll know why. And
we'll amplify it. Don't worry, man. You'll come across louder than me.
I was thinking maybe actually you will be able to speak, this time around.
I don't know if I remember how, man. I kind of like my role isn't. I mean, I get my views out. I think I have ample opportunity to do that, but my goal here is really to give web guys like you, guys with blogs, a voice. All right, because you do videos, you do your your postings, but you need a voice. You need somebody to bounce stuff off of, and that's I kind of feel is my view through my distorted and twisted and warped lens. All right, 'cause we all have our own opinions, we all have our own philosophies, and talking about warped and distorted lens. What about Iran? You think we're building up, aren't we? The UN said, "Oh, they're making nukes," and I believe they are, and I believe that they're bad people, but I don't think that we necessarily want to embark upon World War III as a way of handling the situation. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I was. It now seems that with Gaddafi out of the picture, Chavez dying of cancer, there's only one final step towards. In their playbook of totally conquering, the world's oil markets, and that's Iran. So if you look back at, where we were in 2000, we rolled into Afghanistan, under the auspices of 9/11, whether you believe that or not, I don't. And the fear of the Taliban and these cave dwellers. Right. So we invaded that nation.
Yeah.
Okay. And, everybody's like, I'll tell you the real reason why we're there is three big reasons. Number one is opium production. Afghanistan's the largest opium production in the world. What most people don't know is the Taliban in 2001 stopped opium production throughout the whole country.
Oh, they killed the people who were doing it.
And killed the farmers.
Yeah.
And so most other people don't realize that most of the drug trade in the world is controlled by, the Anglo-American Empire. I mean, Hong Kong Shanghai Bank and, all these big prominent banks, the CIA, they've all been involved in drug running throughout, most of the world. And that narco dollar is very important to stabilize our dollar.
Yeah, go back to the opium wars. And, that was all the trading houses in China and in London, and they wanted that opium flowing, and large fortunes were made.
Yeah, to balance the trade deficit that they had with China. I mean, that's another parallel that we're seeing. The British Empire, the empire that spanned the world, had a trade imbalance with China because China wanted silver for all their trade. So English merchants would take all their, China and silk and tea and be forced to pay in silver. Well, the Chinese didn't want any British manufactured goods to pay back. So what do you think happened to all the silver in England? Eventually flowed to China.
And
so what did they do?
It wound up on the COMEX eventually, 10, 15 years ago, right? I mean, that's what happened to China's silver, and they've been trying to get it back ever since, and that's why we have all these games we're seeing. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So the opium war became a way to avoid having to use silver. You could just trade opium for the finer things in life.
That's right. So that's Afghanistan, and then the other two major things are the Caspian Sea with Kazakhstan. There's a major undeveloped oil reserve there, but look where that is on the map. You got Iran to the south and east, or south and west. You got Russia to the north and to the north of it, and China to the east of it. how do we get that oil? Knowing that the dollars, the only thing that's supporting the dollar is the oil, petrodollar standard. It's vital for America to be able to tap those resources against the against the other people in the area.
Right.
So through, I think, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, they were planned on doing a pipeline. Again, the Taliban said no to it. They had to go. The third major reason why we went into Afghanistan is because there's $1 trillion worth of minerals there.
Yeah.
I mean, here you got this
mineral wealth, huge.
Yeah, $1 trillion, and that's just them sampling it.
Big bucks.
So that was a major reason why we went there. So what was after that? Iraq. Well, what did Saddam do? Saddam, we were his buddy. I mean, we supported this guy. We played him. We put him in power. We, gave him breaks. We gave him an out during the first Gulf War, and he committed the major mortal sin of what?
Yeah, going off the dollar, right?
That's right. He sold oil for euros during the UN Weapons for Food scandal. And did tremendously well. Yeah, the price of oil dropped significantly in dollar terms. In euro terms, all the money that Saddam was making was saved in euros, and the euro was very strong there. And he had to go.
Yep.
And,
well, we were talking before, like they said Gaddafi amassed a fortune of $200 billion. Mubarak, Egypt, the people have nothing. They're dirt poor, right? They're just totally destitute. Mubarak had a nice little $60 billion nest egg. And, you can only imagine the fortunes that these despotic rulers have amassed and are invested all over the place, totally opaque, can't figure out where. And, the collapse of the dollar is going to smoke all of them out and force them to really...
Well, and that, bringing it now to Libya, 10 years ago, to do what we did in Libya would have been front page news. It would have been congressional debates and protests and wars. Think about how desensitized we've become to, these wars without any purpose. These what's the word I'm looking for? Preemptive wars. Now it's like as a matter of
adventurism.
Yeah. So here we went and start bombing the crap out of them, funding the rebels, bringing them in, get Gaddafi out. And again, what was his mortal sin? The guy's been there for 41 years. Why now?
And he wasn't, there were things, he was a nut job. And certainly was portrayed as such in the media, but he was eccentric, shall we put it that way. Not that a lot of other rulers aren't. But he didn't strike me as being a mass murdering type maniac.
No.
Whenever anybody got married in Libya, he gave the
$40,000.
$30,000 he gave them.
Yep.
That's not the sign of a guy who's killing his people.
I tell you what, now that I've unfortunately, I grew up under the Republican, Gaddafi's a scumbag, in 1987 we should have kept bombing him type thing. But now these videos come out. I'm assuming they're true. That gasoline is only 18 cents a gallon. There's free farmland, free seed. To anybody who wants to work the land. Young couples get married, they get $40,000. There's no debt, no interest on any loans that are given out. You want to start a business, all that's there. And that he had the largest mass of gold in Africa.
You just raised an incredible point. Okay, so you just raised a great point, and that is that under Islam, you're not allowed to charge interest. So they've come up with all sorts of ways of avoiding the prohibition, but maybe there's something to it, that one of the animosities towards that religion is that bankers can't get an even break.
That's right.
Right?
Think about it. You have this Islamic revolution, Islamic Spring, Brotherhood, Muslim thing, whatever they got going on over there. What has been, the Muslims' great sin? Their great sin is that they're sitting on our oil and that they don't use interest.
Yeah. Well,
that's the basis for our society. Our basis is spreading debt and death. Yeah. We cannot do that without oil, and we cannot do that without debt. Yeah, and that's why I'm saying that the final tipping point here is Iran, because now we have this final point where here's another country that is is currently selling since 2008 oil for any other currency in the world. In 2008, they opened up the Iranian oil bourse on the Isle of Kish.
Right.
And if you remember, towards the end of Bush's
cables. We cut 2 transatlantic cables to shut them down.
Yeah.
Right? Remember that?
Oh, yeah. And if you remember at the end of Bush's second term, there was all this push to fight for a war there. And Seymour Hersh was in on a meeting with Cheney, and they were trying to come up with ways of causing a casus belli, a cause for the Iranians to start a war there. And the best they could come up with was this Iranian speedboat incident that they thought that was going to do it, and it totally got blown out of the water. But man, back then it was all ready.